The campaign group Human Rights Watch is accusing paramilitary forces in Sudan of ethnic cleansing and crimes against humanity. It says the Rapid Support Forces and allied militias have killed thousands of people in West Darfur, and hundreds of thousands have been driven from their homes. A civil war broke out in Sudan last year. Well, Human Rights Watch says there's evidence of genocide. We want to warn you, our next report contains some images and content you may find disturbing.
The aftermath of an attack in El Ganina, West Darfur, a place home to the Masalit peoples. A new report by Human Rights Watch says ethnically targeted violence is forcing them from their homeland, along with other non-Arab communities. Sudan's army has been at war with paramilitary groups since April 2023. The report accuses the Rapid Support Forces and allied militias of ethnic cleansing and war crimes. One man describes how he survived an attack last year.
They asked what tribes we were from. If you answered Masalit, they would kill you immediately. I lied and said that I am not Masalit. They challenged me, so I told them I am from the Bargo tribe. Then they brought someone to talk to me in that language, and I replied because I know how to speak it. So then they let me go.
He fled to neighboring Chad, where more than 500,000 Sudanese have taken refuge. Another survivor here says he was buried alive by the Rapid Support Forces.
They took us all, the living and the corpses. After they tortured us, they dragged us into a car. Then fluids from the dead bodies began dripping into our eyes, onto our faces and lips. We had to spit it out.
Human Rights Watch is warning there are indications of a possible genocide in West Darfur, and they are calling for immediate action.
We're calling on the UN, in collaboration with the African Union, to urgently deploy a mission with a mandate to protect civilians in Sudan. No place in Sudan today is safe for civilians.
They say the world needs to wake up to what's happening. As experts warn, Sudan is at risk of breaking apart.
Well, I want to get some analysis now with Mutasim Ali with the American University Washington College of Law. He is an expert on Sudan. And Mr. Ali, it's good to have you with us tonight. What has to be done to pull Sudan back from the brink?
Thanks a lot for the question. And also to note that I'm a legal advisor at the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights and a co-author of a recently released report into breaches of the Genocide Convention in Sudan, Darfur, which we concluded that the RSF has committed and is committing a genocide in West Darfur against the Masalit people. But with respect to the question and the ongoing atrocities in Darfur and the recent report by Human Rights Watch, I think we've been seeing these events for quite some time. This is really sort of a repeat atrocities, repeat violations by the same perpetrators, since early 2000s. And therefore, I think the only way to respond to this is to have really an immediate international intervention, especially in situations where there is imminent risk of genocide, like in Al-Fashir, North Darfur.
Well, you say international intervention is needed, but when we look around, we don't see the African Union, for example. I mean, how do you explain this apparent lack of action from the African Union or from other international actors?
I think surely, I think the lack of critical response from the African Union is shameful, and I think we are speaking of a genocide situation based on our our report, right? This is speaking of Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights report. And therefore, I think the response should not only expect from the African Union. We should, expect response from every country. This is an international duty to prevent and punish for the crime of genocide. And so I think it is really a responsibility of all the states. But surely, yes, the African Union bears, the heaviest responsibility on this, because the atrocities and the crimes that we're speaking about are in Darfur, are in Africa. And sadly, the African Union is the union of, many autocrats, human rights abuses, and therefore I think we cannot really expect a lot from the African Union.
And Mr. Ali, you've been part of this report where, you claim that genocide has taken place, and yet we're not seeing an international response that you think we should be seeing. Does that trouble you? I mean, what does that say about, using the accusation of genocide to mobilize international responses?
I mean, as I said, this is really, a shameful, response from the international community. And I think, given the chilling testimonies and the stories that we hear from, displaced persons or refugees in Eastern Chad, to see the indifference and inaction by the international community, it sends a clear message to the victims, that the silence is actually on the side of oppressor and the perpetrator rather than the victim. And therefore, I think it is really a devastating message that we send not only to the victims of atrocities and genocide in Darfur, but all the victims of atrocities elsewhere as well. And so I think, again, we say it is not, of course, it's already too late, but definitely there is a window for the international community to correct the, its past inaction.
Yeah. We understand that more than 500,000 have fled from West Darfur to Chad in just the past year. How big is the risk that this conflict could destabilize the entire region?
We are absolutely seeing some of the, spillover in other places, in Ethiopia, in Eritrea, and surely in the Sahel region. And therefore, I think, and we actually warned against the spillover for a while, since last year, that the international community must immediately act to curb the violations, the abuses, right? We see that the RSF is recruiting, fighters from neighboring countries like Chad, or even from Libya, or from Central African Republic, and others from Niger and the like. And so I think there is, we're seeing quite the spillover of this conflict in other places, and I think it could be even more catastrophic if the international community does not intervene to respond to the ongoing atrocities in Darfur right now. We'll see this more likely in other places as well.
Before we run out of time, I just want to bring up this point and get your response. Sudan has a long history of tribal conflict. In 2004, the UN imposed an open-ended arms embargo in the Darfur region. That is still in place today. Why has that embargo not been expanded to cover the entire country when this conflict clearly is not only limited to Darfur?
Well, I mean, I think that's a good question. And I think, part of the failure of the international community is not only expanding the arms embargo to cover the rest of Sudan, but enforcing the one that is existing at this point in time, right? Like the international community failed to enforce the arms embargo in Darfur. We see many countries, including the UAE, sending supplies, military aid to the RSF and the like. And therefore, I think definitely is a good question. And I think, yes, there is a need to enforce and expand the arms embargo.
Mutasim Ali joining us tonight from Washington, D.C. We appreciate your time and your valuable analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.